And Vid and I were just talking just earlier that it would be quite nice to spend 10 minutes or so for people to just try to relate back the conference in some way to the context that we're in, the Jeffrey Rubinoff Sculpture Park. And I just wonder if anyone has any thoughts about how the theme of art and moral conscience has changed their attitudes towards what they've seen here, or conversely, what they've seen here has changed their attitudes towards art and moral conscience. Sorry to put you all on the spot, but if anyone has any thoughts, I know Vid does have some thoughts, please feel free to just share them.
Maybe I'll just kind of kick us off. I mean, for me, as I said in my talk, I think the key question that Jeffrey's work poses to me anyway is this really difficult question that I talked to Betty about as well yesterday evening, which is how can art, which is not itself representational of a distinct political issue, nevertheless be expressive of a kind of a moral conscience, right? I think as Alan's talk reminded us, sometimes art needs to be tendentious, sometimes art needs to express a particular issue, but I think the question posed for me by Jeffries is that question of how come that these issues that he was so heavily involved with are in some sense at least pointed at by his work. And the way that I initially was thinking about it was through this medium of the word beauty, the sense that I try to bring out of how an artwork perhaps can align us to something greater than ourselves. In Jeffrey's case, perhaps, the kind of history of the whole geological history of the world and our place within it, and perhaps a sense of care that we have towards the world. But something that my fellow speakers' talks have really brought to the front for me is also this importance of freedom, this kind of real commitment, I think, in Jeffrey's work to individuality. I mean, we all know he was a very kind of direct, committed person who sort of saw through this vision, which was incredibly original, but also free from influence of the art market, free from influence of fashions, right? And I think that's something that he has in common both with, in a funny way, with the anarchic spirit. As Mark reminded us, anarchy, the etymology of the word, is freedom from government, and that kind of ethical anarchism that we find in anarchist artists. But also, as Sarah's paper reminded us, the importance of freedom for exercise of democratic virtue is something that perhaps ultimately is what art can teach us. That importance of individuality and importance of relying on your own vision to express both an artistic language but also moral conscience is something that, for me, at any rate, Jeffrey really expresses. So I don't know if other speakers or others would like to continue that thought.
Abstraction actually has been a big theme of this conference, although we haven't spoken about it explicitly that much, but it was in Arash's paper and in George's paper. And I was struck in Mark's paper with the comment about Garbo's sculpture, abstraction is a flight from social responsibility. That's been very interesting to me over the last couple of days, is how does an abstract artwork complicate the act of trying to communicate something. But at the same time, Jeffrey's work, which is, of course, on the whole, abstract. I mean, I think the value comes from what Sarah was talking about, the ambiguity, the fact that it is opposed to prescriptive narrative, is not prescriptive at all, and that generates a particular kind of thinking that you don't necessarily get. Going back to your comment at the beginning, Arash, on the first day of expressing something through text, this is a particular kind of experience, a particular kind of knowledge that is acquired through something that is indirect. So yes, does anyone else want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that that abstract art will sort of render much more meaning when you see it in its historical moment and in its setting. So Jeffrey clearly, it was an enormously social act to create a sculpture park that people can come to. He didn't just refuse to show in a gallery, like, say, Robert Smithson, who built Spiral Jetty outside of the white cube of a gallery, and then it was sort of just to be washed away over the decades, and now it's pretty much gone, I think. But this is something that's permanent and that's attached to the space in this whole conversation because he provided for that. So to me, these are kind of layers of context of the intentions of his very abstraction. Just to take a photograph, eliminating the whole landscaped effect of the garden and the landscape here, take a photograph, say with just sky behind it, of a single one of the sculptures, would be to entirely pluck it out of its social context. And just what we're trying to do here is to put things back into their social and historical context, and theoretical, connections and meanings. So to me, it's this larger project that gives this fabulous context to his work and has deeply changed my own feeling about what I saw when I arrived versus how I now feel about it. It's like the whole experience has layered it and layered it and layered it with all the kinds of thought that it's inspired.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other? Yes, Sarah.
What I also found really interesting, and also maybe what kind of was really expressed in the sculpture park, is that I think our perspective on the arts in the West is very much kind of a spectator-centered perspective. So we're looking at the effect the artwork has on the spectators. But I think what's happening here, and that's something also kind of implicit, I think, in Nietzsche's work, is to really try to understand how the artist-centered perspective is, so how the life can be an artwork. And I think this is really strong. I think that I experienced really when Karun gave us this tour through the sculpture park, and everything is so kind of thought out, right? Kind of there's so much inspiration and idea and vision in the park, so as if it's created as an artwork of one's life. So, and I think this is really interesting. I mean, I was reading a lot of Nietzsche before I came here, because of this life as artwork idea. This is really interesting because I think in the global South, art is really much more thought as a practice, which is this kind of life as an artwork perspective, so perspective of the artist, whereas we are here pretty much obsessed with the spectator perspective, and I don't know why this is. And I think for me it was interesting to see that there is an example in the West which takes this artist-centered perspective. So
Nick?
So I'm a philosopher prone to abstract thinking. And I'm typically doing my work in my office, either on campus or at home, rather disconnected from art and beauty. And so to be in an intellectual space with everyone while, being confronted immediately by wonderful artworks and some of the most beautiful vistas I've ever seen is really special. It's rare to have that combination of thought and just immediate beauty and like interesting art. So yeah, I just think it's a really special setting, especially when you consider that it's created by an artist. It's not a hotel, it's not a commercial space. It's a park created essentially from the love of art, and we're here sort of thinking about that and realizing that, and I think that's incredibly unique. I certainly haven't experienced that before, and so.
Does anyone have any other questions or comments? Okay, well, I think that we can call it a day. So shall we have a round of applause for all of the participants? I think Vid and I just want to say a couple of thank yous, unless you want to go first. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll just take turns saying a couple of thank yous. I think, first and foremost, of course, I think we have to thank you, the one who is absent. We have to thank Jeffrey Rubinoff. I mean, I was really struck, Pat, by your comment just now, and I think that really has kind of transformed my view of the park, because, of course, we are viewing the artworks, but it's almost a part of the artwork as a whole that this is also happening, right? That it is like a living, thinking organism to which people can come back and kind of keep thinking about the issues that were important to Jeffrey and that are important to all of us. So thank you to him. I want to thank, of course, all of our panelists. So Mark Antliff, Alan Atliff, Pat Layton, Sarah Hagenbark, Nick Riggle, dear friends, old and new. It's been truly inspirational and a privilege to be able to talk alongside you. So let us thank Jeffrey and our speakers.
I just want to pick up from what you said there about Jeffrey, because although he died 2 and a bit years ago, I think the fact that we're here and what we're doing at the moment is proof that in some ways he's still working. The work is still being made, the ideas, the context of the work is still being made. And I like the thought that every time we come here together that the art is brought back to life and things are still being produced and created. I've got some thank yous as well. First of all, I want to thank the students. I think your papers have been unbelievably good, every single one of them, and I know it's intimidating to talk in front of any group of people. It's a very challenging task to speak only for 10 minutes. You're brilliantly strict to your time, so I think your papers were absolutely fantastic, and so too were your contributions, so thank you very much for participating. Have to thank the family, of course, I always do. Betty puts a huge amount of work into this. I mean, I know that Karun gets a lot of credit, and he will get some credit in a second, but Betty, this is a big project for Betty, and we are, of course, imposing on her hospitality to bring back the Brian's theme, and on in her home. And it's we're tremendously grateful to you, Betty, for putting the huge amount of work in, and to the rest of the family and the board for being here. So thank you very much. And finally, just a thank you to Karun. Everyone knows how much work Karun puts in, because he's emailing everyone consistently for months and months and months. Every little update from the airline is being forwarded on to individuals. No, it's a real challenge to put on a conference, and to in any context is challenging, but to do so here, bringing people from all over the world, you do it amazingly. You've even managed to organise excellent weather for the last 2 days. So thank you very much, Karun, and a big round of applause for Karun. And of course to Marty, we mustn't forget Marty, sitting silently, but this is... And finally to John, because of course the park that has inspired and impressed so many people here is so much due to his work that he does all year round, but particularly in the build-up to the forum to make it look so wonderful. So thank you, John.
I'd also like to thank, first of all, Vid, because Vid has been an incredible participant for the last 4 years. And as he transitions out of being the junior research fellow, we're looking forward to his, the next person who comes. But of course, it'll be a big hole here. And so we do hope we can lure you back once or twice in the coming years. And of course to James, who works, very, very hard. And we start planning this almost immediately. We'll take a little bit of a break, but I'm sure in the fall we'll get right back to planning that. So thank you, Vid, and thank you, James. If anybody else has anything else to say, I would also just really like to thank the observers the ones that have remained throughout. We really do appreciate having you here. And John Kirk hasn't been mentioned, but I'm not sure if he has. If you know, but John Kirk worked with Jeffrey for over 30 years, actually shaping the land and all the berms and planting the trees and doing all the landscaping together with Jeff. So thank you, John, for coming back and volunteering. And yeah, on a small logistical note, have we got a picture of the speakers yet? No. So the students and Alan as well, so that's one photo, and then all of the speakers. So in our flurry of leaving, if we could please, so Zoe is over there, she'll take your pictures. I know it's terribly bureaucratic, but we'll miss the opportunity if we don't do it now. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the time at Vaughn's studio. Enjoy whatever else you're going to do. And you have till 7:30. We'll see you for dinner or drinks perhaps before.